I'm excited to introduce our esteemed speakers, Edgar Mian, Training and Client Development Specialist at EconoCheck. Edgar travels coast to coast, training financial institution employees on value-added checking features and implementation strategies. The Kansas State University alum has 24 years in the industry. His favorite part of the job is getting to meet people from different parts of the U.S. Edgar lives in Chicago and is a Bears fan. He's married to Holly, who was born and raised in Wisconsin and is a Green Bay Packer fan. Their football Sundays can become very interesting. They have a 16-year-old daughter named after Ava, who is their pride and joy. Edgar enjoys family time, recreational sports, Chicago-style hot dogs, and coaching boxing at a local gym. He's joined by Basil Paul, resolution specialist and case manager at EconoCheck. Basil is an advocate, advisor, and an analyst whose role is to help secure the safety of our members' credit identities and personal information through the tools and resources provided by our monitoring programs. Basil has over 8 years of experience as a lead investigator and additional 8 years of experience in the banking and financial sector in a supervisory position. Basil lives in Atlanta with his wife and 2 sons and is a die-hard Eagles fan. Basil enjoys spending time with his loved ones, hiking, singing karaoke with his friends and family. And with that, Edgar, Basil, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Will. And thank you, everyone else, for joining this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start with a question here. Has anybody here been a victim of identity theft? So I can't see everyone's face here. So do me a favor. If you have, just do me a favor and raise your hand if you have. All right. So I'm going to back this up and I'm going to ask the question again. Okay. And after I ask this question again, I want everyone, 100% of you, all of you on this webinar to raise your hand. So anyone here been a victim of identity theft? Everyone should be raising their hand. Every single one of you. Now, again, I can't see your faces right now, but some of you are probably looking at the screen a little bit funny right now and thinking to yourself, well, what do you mean? Well, hey, what does Edgar mean? I've been a victim of identity theft. How does he know that? Well, I'm going to prove it to you. It's called corporate data breaches. Folks, if you have ever been a victim of a breach, yes, the bad guys have your information. That's what we're talking about here. You've been a victim of identity theft. It has been stolen. Now, they may not be using it quite yet, but I promise you, the bad guys, and when I say bad guys, the fraudsters, they have your information. It's in their hands. Once again, corporate data breaches. And by the way, the listing right here that I'm showing you here, it's not necessarily up to date. There's been more recent ones here, but I've been a victim 5 times that I know of, probably more, but I've been advised of, like the Target breach, Home Depot breach, Equifax breach, Delta Airlines got breached about 3.5 years ago. Marriott got breached about 1.5 years ago, and so on and so on. And actually, recently, you see AT&T here. This is from an old list, so it happened again, right? Within within the month, I think AT&T announced that they had gone through another breach. And then Ticketmaster, very recent, Ticketmaster out there recently went through a breach. Folks, they have it. Unfortunately, they have it. So that's why I said everyone here should be raising your hand, because unfortunately, it is a realism. The bad guys have your information. They may not be using it, right? But they got it. And as far as keeping them from using it, or at least catching it, there's a couple ways to do that. I'm going to give you some advice on that, which California Coast Credit Union, they have some options that they provide in their checking accounts where you can help protect yourself, from them to start using your information. So here's what I want to do. I really want to cover number 2, but the reason why I have number 1 up here, identity theft, identity fraud, is it always comes up in my presentation. So when someone thinks of identity theft, identity fraud, a lot of times they just think, well, it's someone has stolen some of your money from a checking account, from a share account, a savings, a money market, whatever. Okay, I'm going to lightly touch on that because really that's not what we're here to talk about. But I do want to give you, I guess, some of my personal advice that I've heard out there working with different financial institutions across the United States, recommendations out there. But really the focus is going to be on number 2, right? Someone using your personal identifiable information, your PII is what we call it. So that's going to be the focus. But again, just briefly, want to touch based on this, and any questions with regard to this really it's going to come down to go to your financial institution when it comes to, hey, someone has, there's a fraudulent transaction that has, shown up on a checking account. But any advice on what you can do? Well, check your transactions, folks. That's my best advice to you. Check your transactions, make sure you are checking your transactions, maybe by logging in online or checking your statements. But please go out there and do that. That's how you catch it, because you do have some recourse. And the recourse, and it has to be caught in a timely manner, is to go to your financial institution to say, hey, you know what? See this $100 transaction right here? That wasn't me. I didn't do that. And then you go through a process with your financial institution, but you do have to take the time to check your transactions. And I hear it all the time. And I used to hear it all the time back in the day when I first started in this industry years and years ago, when I lived in the state of Kansas where I grew up. I was a teller, and I would always hear it. And I always thought it was interesting from folks. You know what? I just don't have time. I don't have time to do that. Folks, this is your money, right? Make time, 5-10 minutes, at least once a month, check those transactions. So a couple ways to do that. Paper statements, to each his own. Personally, that's not my thing. It's not my jam. I don't like stuff being sent in the mail, right? It could get lost. That's a lot of information. I prefer online banking, right? Logging in, also e-statements. And a lot of times people think, well, is it secure? The answer is yes. Okay, it is secure. Financial institutions like your financial institution, California Coast Credit Union, they are secure. Folks, financial institutions across the United States, it's one of the, they are the highly scrutinized. And by that, I mean highly regulated. One of the most regulated industries out there is financial institutions. They go through an examination. They have to. Okay, they have to maintain the highest level of securities. They just have to, and they do that. So your credit union does do that. So when you ask, are they secure? The answer is absolutely. They are secure. Have strong passwords, folks. Password is not a strong password, and 1 2 3 4 5 6 is not a strong password either. So build a strong password there. You hear this all the time. Don't log into a public access of a Wi-Fi, like if you're at a hotel, which I currently am, by the way, traveling for work here, a Starbucks hotel lobby. Just don't do that. And if you do have to do that, unfortunately, then don't go log in to your online banking at that point. So try to avoid that. So avoid skimming. So I do this. I avoid that. If my financial institution, I try to use their ATMs. And if I have to go to a foreign ATM because I'm traveling for work, for example, then I do try to find myself a financial institution ATM, as opposed to an ATM that's just in middle of a hotel lobby or a middle of a gas station, right? I try to avoid that. And then here's something else, skimming. So I saw this actually on 60 Minutes a couple years ago. So a lot of times gas stations, for example, there was skimming, and the skimming is where an actual device is put on top of where the card reader goes. And what you can do, and I again saw this on 60 Minutes, is always wiggle it. So when I'm at a gas station, I'm always wiggling it. And if it's loose and if it comes off, you take that into that gas station. There's something wrong there. It shouldn't come off. More than likely, it's been put on there by a fraudster for skimming purposes. And as always, folks, don't give out any unnecessary information, right? And that's going to help you out with, people going in and stealing your money, a fraudulent transaction and whatnot. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a fraudulent transaction, is work with your financial institution. So I just wanted to lightly touch on that. But what I do want to focus in on now is what's highlighted now in red is, again, your personal identifiable information, right? I've already said it. Bad guys already have your information. Well, how do I know they're not using it, right? How do I know they're not using it? Well, there's some ways to do that. And again, California Coast Credit Union has some options there, checking accounts. We ask you if you have some questions on that. Please contact someone in the new accounts area, or give them a call. There are some options out there for you. Here's what I would be looking for. Okay. And sometimes I get asked, hey, so what is it that you look for with these types of services? It's these bullets right here: credit monitoring, dark web monitoring, find something that provides maybe access to a credit bureau report, a score. Hey, and if it does happen, I'm a victim of fraud now. The bad guys that are using my information, it's a mess. Well, I do theft resolution service, and Basil will talk a little bit more about that. He's one of our fraud experts, expense reimbursement, okay, and who all is covered. So those are the things that I am personally looking for. So let's begin with credit file monitoring. All right, back to what I said at the beginning. They have your information. Well, what about if they start using it? What about if somebody was using it now and was applying for a loan? How would you know? Well, if you don't have credit file monitoring, guess what? You're not going to know, right? You're not going to know. You'll probably find out down the line, maybe a couple years from now, when you go and apply for a loan. And at that point, when they run your credit, your credit's shot, maybe not, but maybe you have all kinds of loans out there that aren't yours. Really, at that point, it's just too late, right? It's just too late. So don't let that happen to you. So my recommendation is to go out there and seek a program, maybe an account that gives you access to your daily credit file monitoring. And if somebody runs your credit, new loan, paid off loan, address change, whatever, the credit bureau makes a change, you should receive an alert. Okay, just like here's a copy of that alert right here. Now it's generic in form, but of course, if you have activated daily credit file monitoring, it would be specific to you. We just wanted to make this as a generic message, but at the end of the day, it just lets you know, hey, you know what, Edgar, something's happened, right? Something's happened. And the program that's offered at California Coast Credit Union is when you log in, it would give you the details. So if somebody had ran my credit, you would be able to see exactly who they are, an address, a phone number if I need to contact them. Now, if it's me that's applying for this loan, then I'm kind of expecting that alert, right? And that's all fine and dandy. That's okay. But what about if it's not me? Well, if it's not me, then it is fraud. I am now a victim of identity fraud. And what do I need to do next? That's going to come back to the resolution, which is Basil, which he'll talk about this a little bit later. But the point is, up front, you've caught it. Okay, this inquiry, it wasn't me. I'm not applying for this loan. There shouldn't be a credit check. So you've caught it up front. So definitely something that I'm looking for in my financial institution. Do you have something that offers the daily credit file monitoring? Okay, here's another one: dark web monitoring. So I'm going to give you a highlight of what the dark web, and here's why I say the highlight, folks. I don't pretend to be an IT person. Okay, I'm not. Basil's not either. But if you talk to an IT person, they most certainly will give you a lot more information on the dark web. But here's what the way I describe the dark web when I'm doing training sessions. First of all, the dark web, it's an internet. It's the internet. It's a special internet. Okay, special internet, and they call it the dark web because when you're out there on the dark web, it's hard to be tracked. And if that is the case, guess what the bad guys have figured out, the fraudsters? Well, if it's hard for them to be tracked, well, that's where they like to sell your information, right? Because then it's hard for them to be tracked down. It's hard for them to be possibly arrested, right? Possibly arrested. So that's where they like to take your information and sell your information out there on the dark web. So actually, that Ticketmaster breach that recently happened, they found out about it because information from Ticketmaster was out there on the dark web. So the dark web monitoring, first of all, the dark web, special internet, you even have to have a special internet browser to even get to the dark web. Like, for example, on my phone, I use Safari. On my laptop, I use Chrome to get out there on the internet. Those two things, they can't get you out to the dark web. You actually have to download a special internet browser to even get out there. But at the end of the day, folks, the dark web, just a special internet where the bad guys like to sell your information. And if that's the case, well, guess what? I want to make sure that that's not happening. If my information is moving out there on the dark web, I will receive an alert. if you've activated the dark web, right? And then what to do next, right? Gives you some information. And if it becomes more in depth as far as what to do next, again, the thing that I highly recommend to look for is to have a fraud expert available to you, like Basil, the resolution service. But definitely want to have something out there called dark web monitoring is what I would look for. All right, a couple of other things here. And I kind of put these two things together. Access to your credit score and also your credit bureau report. So the reason why you want to have access to a credit score is when you have access to a credit score, you're viewing your score, right? And you start to see drastic changes, and maybe there should not be drastic changes, then something's happening, right? That's a trigger, right? That's a trigger for you that, hey, something is happening. So that's why I recommend having access to a credit score. And then also the report. Okay, the report is what's listed on there. The score is one thing, the report, that's a separate feature, right? Everything, all the loans. Yep, this is my loan. Yep, this is my loan, my loan, my loan, and so on and so on. Oh, this is not your loan? Well, guess what? Then you are a victim of identity fraud. So highly recommend you having access to a credit score and also a credit bureau report. All right, here's another one that I think is very important. And I just think it's a huge peace of mind knowing that, hey, if something was to start happening, first of all, I talked about how the bad guys already have my information, right? And they have yours as well. They may not be using it, but they got it. But then all of a sudden, they now start using it, okay? Well, if they now start using it, you're a victim of fraud now, and let's say it's a mess. Folks, question for you, okay? What's the first step if you're a victim of fraud? What's the second step? Third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so on. We really don't know, right? It's kind of a guessing game. Unless you've been a victim of fraud before, it really is a guessing game. I don't know. Do I Google it and download a self-help kit, right? And start to go step by step by step. It just becomes a very, very stressful a stressful situation for you. So one thing that I always look for is a program that has fully managed recovery, because I don't want it to be such a stressful, situation. So this is where I'm going to turn it over to Basil here, because the programs that are provided is, hey, you're going to get a fraud expert, right? That's going to handhold you from start to finish. So Basil, I'm going to turn it over for you
Sure.
for a minute.
Yeah. Hi, thanks, Edgar. So as Edgar was stating in the presentation, there's a number of different ways that your information can be exposed, your information can be compromised. So step number one is finding out how that fraud was detected. If you have credit file monitoring services with us, we would send you an email and a text message if you've set up for that service as well. But let's just say hypothetically, you get a text message or an email from an outside source. At that point, you would be tasked with a case manager, and that case manager is assigned to make sure that you go through all of the steps of remediation until we get to the final step, which is having your identity restored. So as an expert, what we do is we implement strategies, tips to help not only resolve the fraud that you're experiencing currently, but to help ensure that it doesn't happen in the future. So step number three is filing an incident report. That's providing assistance with reporting it to maybe the Federal Trade Commission, law enforcement, any entity that's been impacted. So if it's a financial institution, a credit card company, any entity that claims that they have your information or claims that someone else used your information to apply for credit, a loan or a line, we would report and document that. Step number four is coming up with a comprehensive recovery plan. This is a step-by-step process that we walk our members through, and it's custom tailored to each person's individual situation and their time frame. So some people may not have the time to deal with everything on our initial phone call, and that's okay. We'll lay it out into small steps that can be done immediately, according to importance, and then we can follow up on days that they're free or they have a little bit more time to follow through on the rest of the steps. So our goal is to make sure that no one is overwhelmed, but they're still getting all of the assistance that they need at their time frame, of course. Step number 5 is helping establish fraud alerts and activating monitoring. That goes with the preventative piece. The fraud alerts, we would work with the 3 credit reporting agencies to get those activated. That would add on as another layer of protection around your credit information. And it'll help stop unauthorized persons from using that PII, what Edgar was saying earlier, that personal identifiable information against your will or your consent. And of course, the last step is identity restored. I'd like to say that we can wrap it up in 6 steps. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. But again, as a dedicated case manager, our job is to ensure that the complete process is done no matter how many steps it takes. And so the involvement of the individual or the victim is completely up to them, how involved that they want to be in the process. Sometimes they'll tell us, hey, go ahead and you drive the car, we'll sit in the passenger seat, and then that's completely fine. We work as advocates, advisors, basically to any extent that we're needed. And so that's our complete role in a nutshell. So.
All right, thanks for that, Basil. That's huge. I really think that's a huge feature that you know, if your financial institution offers it, and you know, you all do, just peace of mind. That's what it is. All right, another feature that I look for: expense reimbursement. Now, we talked a little about somebody has stolen a fraudulent transaction, right? Remember, you're working with your financial institution when it comes to that, right? And there's a process, provisional credit and investigating and this and that. But what we're talking about here is additional out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So let's go through an example. Let's say all of us on this webinar here, let's say we are all victims of identity fraud, all right? And it's a mess. It's a mess for us. We get nasty collection calls every day. They don't believe that it's not us, so much so that they're suing us. They're taking us to court. So now we have to take the time to go to court and prove that it's not us, right? To clear our name. So they are taking us to court. And by the way, if you got summoned to appear in court legally, you have to appear in court. Oh, and by the way, this hypothetical that I'm going through here, let's say that this fraud is happening out of state. Well, guess what? You got to get there, right? Now, if the court allows you to do a Zoom call, fantastic. But what about if they don't? Well, then you have to legally get there. So you might be out of pocket some money. Airfare, hotel, meals, rent-a-car, gasoline, court costs, lawyer fees, lost wages. You got little ones, so you have to hire a part-time babysitter to stay with them for 3 days, 3 nights. That's what we're talking about here. You might be out of pocket some money, right? Get reimbursed. That's what this is for. That's what we're talking about here. And at the credit union, it offers up to $25,000 for the out-of-pocket expenses, and that is annually. So it's more than enough, folks. It just is. That's what we're talking about here. So make sure you look for a program that has, you know, expense reimbursement, because more than likely, if you are dealing with fraud and it's in depth, yeah, you're going to be out of pocket some money. Well, guess what? You're in the right account, right? Get reimbursed. Keep all of those receipts, right? You'll be out of pocket initially, but get reimbursed. So that's what we are talking about here. Otherwise, you're going to be out of pocket, unfortunately. So that is the absolute minimum that I wanted to talk about: the credit monitoring, all the way down to, you know, expense reimbursement, and also ask your financial institution, hey, who all is covered with regard to this? Who all does this cover? So that's a conversation to have with the service provider. In your case, it's going to be the credit union, right? So going a little bit above and beyond, there's some additional features that is offered, by the way, at California Coast Credit Union in another account. If you're looking, you know, again, going a little bit above and beyond, and some other additional features that's provided is IP address monitoring. So you just have that, make sure that nobody's tapping into that IP address that you are using. There's also high risk transaction monitoring as well. So it's a network of, and it's not just financial institutions, but it's a network of companies, like insurance companies, cell phone providers, that there might be a high risk transaction that happens. And it's not necessarily just a high risk transaction. Also, it could be just like a simple profile change, a username, maybe a password. You would be notified. Now, if it's you that's changing that password, that's all fine and dandy, but at least you got notified, right? But what about if it's not you that made that password change? Well, then something's wrong, right? Something's wrong. We need to look into that. So anyway, high risk transaction monitoring, social media monitoring as well. Okay. And as far as social media monitoring, we've all seen this. I see it probably of all, I'm talking about just Facebook now. Okay. But it monitors more than just Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well. But I see this all the time, at least once a month on Facebook from a Facebook friend. Hey, don't accept another Facebook friend request from me. I've been hacked. That just happens. So that just happens. So with this social media monitoring, it's monitoring your social media accounts, and for maybe a picture change, a password change, username change. Once again, if it's you, that's fine. But something also out of the ordinary, maybe vulgarity as well, that's not typical of you, right? So it looks for that. The algorithm looks for that and gives you a notification, sends you an email. You can enable text as well that, hey, you know what, this was posted. Is this really you? So social media monitoring, and that's going a little bit above and beyond. And there is an option for you at the credit union for that. All right, so just want to end with this. Hey, where can I get such a program? There's some options for you, and there's nothing wrong with looking at options. In fact, we implore you to do that. We want you to do that. Go out there and look for companies, identity theft protection companies, and hey, what all do they provide? I'd be looking at everything that's provided. Remember the minimum, right? That I put out there. At least look for that, right? That's what I'm looking for. And then also, there's nothing wrong with shopping for cost, right? Look at it. You got, I see some examples there that I put out there. And then sometimes when I'm doing these presentations, I get that, well, you know what, Edgar, what about those free programs like Free Credit Karma and, the Credit Wise, right? With Capital One, right? Got to ask yourself, like Free Credit Karma. That's a popular one that I hear out there in my training sessions that I do. Got to ask yourself, why is it free? Okay. Why is it free? So, Free Credit Karma, folks, they're not a nonprofit organization. They're just not. They are a company. They like to make money. And how they make money is they will take the information when you have signed up for such, and they actually sell that information out there. And they have business partners out there. Like I'm just using an example, like a credit card company. And if you end up signing up with them, then they get a little kickback from that. So the information that you're trying to protect, guess what? They're out there selling it, unfortunately. So you got to ask yourself, why is it free? And is it good for me? So I have underlined, I'm a firm believer in this. Shop your financial institution. Okay. Go to your credit union. Ask them questions. What all do you offer? That's the best thing that you can do. Think about it this way. If you trust your financial institution with your money, wouldn't you trust them for other features like credit file monitoring, like fraud experts out there, like Basil, right? A team like that. I think the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes, because they have done their due diligence out there on your behalf, and they've partnered with only the best. Okay, they've partnered with only the best. As I stated at the very beginning, financial institutions highly scrutinized as far as regulated, examined, right? So they examine their vendor partners as well. So that's why I have underlined shop your financial institutions. I just think that's just going to be the best route. All right, folks, and I want to thank everyone for your time. I guess we can open it up the floor to some Q&A.
Thank you, Edgar and Basil, for that information. There's a lot of good information on there, lots to unpack. I do want to remind everybody, if you do have a question, utilize the Q&A function at your bottom of the screen, and we will be able to answer those questions. But first, I'd like to introduce Andres de la Mora, our Business Development Manager, to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. What a great webinar today. Thank you for attending the webinar. My name is Andres. I am the Business Development Manager here at California Coast Credit Union, and I'm here to help if you have any questions regarding any product-specific questions. I'm here to help and answer them in the chat box. I have placed a few links in the chat box regarding some of the checking accounts that we offer that provide some of these services that were talked about today. Please go ahead and check out those links. You'll find a lot of information in there. And I'm also going to place my information in the chat box just in case you have any other questions or you want to reach out. You can reach out to me at via email, text, or call at any time, please. And I'll be happy to answer any of those additional questions. Thanks again for joining the webinar.
Thanks, Andres. Gentlemen, I have some questions. You ready?
You bet.
Yes, sir.
First question is, if our information is found on the dark web from a data breach or other situation, does this feature assistance to clear that, or is that an extra cost? How does your service credit monitoring handle information on the dark web?
Yeah. So first of all, if your information is out there moving on the dark web, more than likely it's being sold, right? So you would receive an alert. That's what happens. And in that alert, it gives you some things to, that you could do up front. Like, for example, you're going to want to go in and possibly change some passwords, right? That you have out there. But if you are a victim of identity fraud, right? Fully managed resolution, that's where the Basel would come into play, that, hey, you're a victim of fraud. And now they're using it, right? And it's part of the package that you all offer, that California Coast, the fully managed resolution. So there's not additional cost for that. So it's all built into the checking account that you offer at California Coast.
Yeah, I just want to mention I do have this service, and I do get alerts when my information is on the dark web, such as my email address. Now, doesn't the service require us to put the information that it wants to track on the dark web? For instance, I put my driver's license number, my email address, a few other things, so that it'll alert me if it was found on the dark web. And I've gotten those alerts. What other information should we be putting in there for monitoring on the dark web? And that means that we'd have to tell you what we want to be monitored.
Yeah, that's correct, Will. And the thing that I always say up front is, you're in the driver's seat. If you have access to dark web monitoring, you put out there what you want to have monitored out there on the dark web. More than likely, it's already out there. Let's just get that, just put that out there, right? But if it starts moving, well, I definitely want to know about that. So some other information. You just mentioned some of the information that you put out there, right? Passport information. Okay, that's something that's an option out there. I've done mine. Right, national ID. So if you have dual citizenship, insurance information as well. So there's usernames, there's passwords, emails, phone numbers, address, account numbers, debit cards, credit cards, social security number, of course, out there. So those are the main ones out there. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of some others out there, but I said maiden names, like my mother's maiden name. That's one of the options out there as well. So.
Yeah, no, it's a little scary to actually input this information that we want monitored when we don't want that information out there. So you have to understand, from a consumer perspective, we're probably reluctant to put that information on there because even though we want it tracked if it is out there on the dark web, it could be a little, we're just reluctant to put that information in there to search.
Yeah, there is no question about it. Here's why I always say, that's why I started off with, you are always in the driver's seat, right? What you want to put out there monitored. And I can tell you this from a member consumer standpoint. And kudos to California Coast Credit Union. When you all partner with companies like NXG/EconoCheck, okay, us, you do your due diligence, right? It's not like you go out there and you just sign up. Well, hey, we believe these guys and we think they're good people. Let's go ahead and sign up for that. Of course not. You do your due diligence with the vendors that you provide for your members, right? And you did that with us, so you don't take that lightly. We have to run the tests, run the gamut, and maintain the highest levels of security, which we do because we're just like California Coast Credit Union, right? There's scrutiny out there, and we have to maintain the highest levels of security. So there's hesitation, without a doubt, and that goes back to what I stated before here, by going back to this right here. Shop your financial institutions, because I know your financial institutions like California Coast, they have done their due diligence and with their vendor partners. So that's why that should hopefully give you some comfort as, yeah, that's some personal private information I'm putting in there, but you know what? California Coast, they did the work for me. They did their due diligence.
Yeah. Thanks, Edgar. Another question is, what about credit freezing? Do you recommend it, and how does it affect the monitoring?
Yeah. So with the monitoring, if you do freeze your credit, you're still going to be able to authenticate and activate your daily credit file monitoring. That wasn't always the case, but now you can do that. They make it accessible. So as far as recommending it, personal view. I have daily credit file monitoring. I'm comfortable with my daily credit file monitoring. Excuse me. So I'm okay with not freezing my credit. And there's some reason for that. For example, if just, we find a deal that we just absolutely have to have, my wife and I, and we go to, we have to purchase this and we have to get some financing right away. If I have frozen my credit, more than likely it's not going to go through, right? Because I have frozen my credit. So is freezing your credit effective? Sure, absolutely, it is. But that really is going to be, it's going to be up to you. If you don't have daily credit file monitoring, then that's not a bad thing to freeze your credit. But if you have daily credit file monitoring, again, me personally, I am comfortable with not having my credit bureaus frozen because I have daily credit file monitoring. I would at least have one, put it that way. And I choose daily credit file monitoring. I just think that's the best route. It's just easier for me. It's more convenient for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Edgar. Another question came in. You mentioned high risk transactions. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What do you mean by a high risk transaction?
Yeah, something that's out of the norm, for you, something that you haven't done for a while. If there's a consistent transaction out there, then everything seems to be okay. But something just out of the norm, maybe a bigger than normal transaction, a transfer, and another thing could be a change in username, a change in password, change in something, in a profile with a beneficiary, right? So all of those things like that.
Gotcha. Excellent. Another question. Once your info is on the dark web, is there any way to get it out of there? Does anyone do that for me?
So that's really left up to the organization out there that got breached. Like, for example, Ticketmaster. Okay, Ticketmaster. It's really up to Ticketmaster that has to now go out there on the dark web and have it removed through their technology. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to those, companies that went through that breach that have it out there. They're the ones that, take it off.
Excellent. Thank you. How good are the free ID protection plans that are offered through the corporate data thefts?
Oh, through the corporate data thefts.
They usually offer a free year.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Target breach, right? I can't remember what they offered when they went through that years ago. I think it was a year. Then after that, it was, I think, $12.99 a month a person, right? They typically, I will say, when a company has gone through a breach, they typically give you a pretty good service out there. It's not going to be like a free Credit Karma or anything like that. So it does tend to be, you know, a pretty good service as far as monitoring goes. Definitely look into some additional steps, though. Are they going to give you resolution, a fraud expert like a Basil, right? Do they give you some expense reimbursement? That's kind of iffy there. But as far as the monitoring goes, yeah, for the most part, it's pretty good out there that we've seen out there.
Okay, excellent. Another question. One of my friends was a victim of property fraud. Someone tried to sell his ranch without his knowledge. Do you have any advice for protecting ourselves from that type of fraud? I set up alerts with my county clerk's office.
That's it right there. Setting up with local government's county clerk office and doing that. That's my advice to you. So you've answered it right there.
All right. Another question came in. A good credit monitoring would be the no cost monitoring offered by the company that is hacked. I haven't had to pay for monitoring for the last 7 years. Now I have another free year courtesy of Ticketmaster.
Good old Ticketmaster, and another free year, right? Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. It is. It eventually stops being free. So you've gotten it for 7 years. That's a little bit out of the norm. Maybe Ticketmaster made a little mistake on your for you personally. And by the way, I wouldn't let them know if you're getting it for free. Okay, that hey, good for you. But for a regular person, I can tell you Ticketmaster didn't give it away for 7 years for free. So I think they missed something. And good for you. Good for you. And you're right. The products. It was a question before. Well, the products that they offer when they go through a breach, they are decent products. Sure.
Yeah, but you want to look at all the features, like you said,
Oh, yeah.
expense reimbursement. Now again, I have this monitoring service, and when I get notified whenever my credit has been accessed. And in fact, in one particular situation, it was not me, and I let them know that it wasn't a transaction by me, and they alerted all the credit bureaus for me and put a temporary freeze on all 3 credit bureaus for me. I didn't have to do anything. So it was a great service that they did. And I didn't have to write each letter or contact each credit bureau. You guys did it for me, and it really just saved me a whole lot of time. So I really appreciate that service as well. Another question came in. What about youth? Minors under 18, they have not had to access their credit reports just because they don't apply for credit. However, there have been issues where there's been credit established for social security numbers of minors. Is there does your service work for minors, or what's the best way to go about checking credit for a minor, just to make sure that there isn't any type of fraud or any other accounts established by fraudsters?
So with our program, it is limited to 18 years or older. So what you could do, my advice to you for a minor would be to go direct to the credit bureaus and ask them, hey, is there a profile set up for my daughter Ava Mian, who's 16 years of age, right? Is there something already set up? There shouldn't be, right? But that's what I would do. Basil, do you want to expand a little bit on that? What you see out there?
Yeah, so that's exactly. So if we're working on a case for an adult that's over the age of 18 and they have minor children, we'll work with them to contact the bureaus and just verify if there's any information under that minor's profile. What we typically advise is what Edgar said, is to lock those credit freezes, put those in place for the minor, because if they're under 18 years of age, they really don't need to have any credit or have anyone even do inquiries. But we do have some remediation steps and processes that we can help individuals. But the credit file monitoring program specifically is 18 and over, but we don't limit our assistance or resource for anyone that has a minor that needs some help.
Excellent. Thanks, Basil. I just want to remind everybody that hacks aren't limited to large companies. Schools get hacked. So if your child has, well, they're going to have your child's information, social security number, address, date of birth. So schools have been known to be hacked. So I would do whatever it takes to make sure that you protect your credit of your minor children so that they don't have, so their credit reports don't get access. So no one is immune to being hacked. So just be aware of that and do whatever you can. Talk with your credit union or representative to talk about ways that you can protect your minor children. Let's see. They're asking, our audience is asking, how can we contact you, Edgar and Basil? Do you have a team that we can contact to get more information about your services?
Yes, that's going to be in the new, well, either your call center, right? Or in the lobbies, right? Because it's built into some options in some of your checking accounts at California Coast. So that to have access to, these features. So.
That's right. In fact, you can contact Andres. Andres, his contact information is in the chat. If you have any questions about how the programs work through our extra value checking, we'll be happy to kind of go over those with you. And just a reminder, this will be recorded, so we will upload this to our YouTube channel within a couple of days. So if there's something you want to go back and review, you'll be able to do that on our YouTube channel, Calco CU. Also, you'll be getting a feedback form on today's presentation. We want to hear what you thought of the presentation and let us know what topics that you want to learn about. And if you do fill out that feedback form, you will be entered to a drawing for a $25 gift card. Now, the feedback forms are anonymous, so please include your name and contact number if you want to be entered. We're going to continue our monthly series next month, so stay tuned. Keep an eye out for our website or emails about upcoming webinars. Also, feel free to use our free financial wellness resource called Enrich. I did put the information there in the chat. Enrich is a free financial wellness portal where it has thousands of videos, articles, tools, calculators, courses on just about any personal finance related topic, including identity theft, including cybersecurity, and ways that you can protect yourself. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. We do have our videos and previously recorded webinars up on there. I want to thank Basil and Edgar for the presentation today. Hopefully everyone got to learn some valuable information that you can use and put forward into your financial journey. And if there's no other questions, I just want to thank everybody for attending and joining us today. And until next month, we'll see you then.